Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today we're going to show you how to create hi-hat rolls and snare rolls inside of FL Studio. It really doesn't matter which DAW you're using. You could take these techniques and use them in any DAW. So what I want to show you today is built-in snare rolls that sound more realistic, like a drum kit, and also synthesized snare rolls taking advantage of the step sequencer, aka the channel rack in FL Studio 12. So I'll simplify what that really means. So let's open up our browser. Let's go to BusyWorksBeats.com. Let's go to Fleek, Drum Kits, and let's choose. Now here I want to show you the sounds you're going to be looking for, excuse me, when you're trying to create hi-hat rolls and snare rolls. For hi-hat rolls, you want to think a very short hi-hat that's has a very low decay, like, you know, I can't even do it that fast. You know, like kind of like a machine gun. I don't mean it that violent, but you know, you only hear that little click of each bullet coming out the barrel. And that's what I'm talking about. Or every time the hammer hits or whatever, however guns work. I don't know. I don't have one. So think of it that way. Okay. You want a very short decay. You want the sound to repeat over and over again. I'm going to show you how to do that. And you want to be creative with your hi-hat rolls. I'm going to show you different ways to be creative with it. Snare rolls, same thing. You want a very short decay snare roll. You want to have something very short and to the point. You don't have a long drawn out snare roll. There are certain reasons why you would use longer snare rolls, like for EDM. If you wanted to create a build-up, that's where you would use maybe a longer snare to kind of fill in more of the noise. So just think short decay time for the most part. Let's check out some kits from Fleek just to see what we have here. So those are too long. You can always shorten a sample, by the way. So this one, at least it has a short body sound to it. It's not very long. So, well, let's keep looking. Here's the perfect snare roll sound, snare NM. Let's open that up. And what else? Hi-hat roll. So we got to find a hi-hat. That's a cool one you can use for a more abstract hi-hat roll. Let's go for the more classic, higher pitched sound. So let's see. So here's a perfect sound for a hi-hat roll. Boom. Okay, so now we have the hi-hat and we have the snare. Again, you can work with those longer snares for your EDM songs or for your electronic songs to fill in that noise, to use noise to fill in that gap, okay, of the build. So you can do that as well. So it's kind of like a two-sided coin. Anyway, we're going to turn the metronome on. We're at 140 BPM, just the starting BPM. Now, first I want to show you what a snare roll sounds like from a drum kit. And then we're going to get into what the snare roll that we're going to create is going to sound like. Okay, it's very different. So let's go into Kontakt 5. We're using Abbey Road Modern Drummer. I'm going to open up the piano roll. And I forget which key it is. Here we go. So here's the snare roll. So where do you use this if you were to use it in a live drum context? So let's just set up a pattern here with a kick and a snare. Let's turn the metronome on. Forgot we're at 140, so let's go. Okay, so a snare roll typically for a real drum kit would go somewhere at the end of a rhythm. Now you can place it anywhere you want. I'm not saying you have to put it at the end, but it kind of gives like the wrap up feel to your drum. So let's add that right at the end. Okay, it just has that imperial sound to it, like a Michael Jackson style sound. Okay, so that's where you would generally add a snare roll. So that's this is where it all started from. Okay, so I'm trying to show you the source so we can understand how this hip hop snare roll kind of came about. So using this kind of realistic sound, let's work our way into the hip hop way to approach it. So snare rolls can last a longer time, or they can just last for a specific amount of time. So I should probably add a kick and a snare. I mean a kick, so we can get this in context. So let's just add a random kick. So let me add a hip hop pattern. Okay, so now we have the kick. I'm going to add the snare like it regularly would hit. Okay, so at the end, we're going to have that snare roll, just like the original drum kit. We're going to have the snare roll at the end. So let's go to pattern 2. Now notice we're in double tempo, so I'm kind of 2 beats equals 1 beat in this case. So I spread it out. Okay, so let's create that same kind of sound just with the kick and the snare. I'm going to add a hi-hat roll starting at this point. So I've found quick techniques to kind of make it easier to create hi-hat rolls. So start everything in the step sequencer first. And then what you can do is go to the piano roll overview. Okay, this is going to keep the sounds in these little triangles, which means it's not going to give it a defined note length. They're just points along the piano roll. So click inside, and they're going to be these cylindrical looking shapes that are very short. So, but if you drag this out, notice it becomes a note in the piano roll. And if I go back out to the step sequencer, now it gives me a different view. Okay, so when you move these notes and make them longer, it actually turns it into MIDI and gives it a note length, and then it turns it into this type of screen where you won't be able to see it like you see it as in the step sequencer. So let's go back to the piano roll, take Control Z, and if I X out, go back, now it looks like it was before. Okay, so that's why I like to start out with the step sequencer, go to the piano roll overview, and what I'm going to do now is figure the rhythm of my snare roll at the end. Which kind of, do I want a triplet rhythm? I'll show you that in a second. Do I want a fast rhythm? Do I want a t-t-t-t-t, or do I want or do I want t-t-t-t-t-t? Okay, so those are the 3 different patterns. I know that's very informal. Do I want t-t-t-t-t, or do I want t-t-t-t-t? Okay, so the first one was just, we set this to a half step and we zoom in. Now what you can do, what I like to do is actually drag it out because it makes it a lot easier. So just drag that note out, change your snap to grid to a half step, and then hit Control U. So that's going to create a semi-fast snare roll. Okay, so it's pretty basic, straightforward. Let's say you want to create a faster snare roll. Now keep in mind that I dragged the note out, so it's now going to be seen as a MIDI screen instead of the channel rack step sequencer view. So it's going to give us that green, this kind of look. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control, left click and drag, and now I'm going to change my snap to grid to a 4th step. This is going to make it go even faster. So now I'm going to hit Control U to chop these notes up, and you can see how much faster they go now. So that's how you create that glitch sound. So let's X out real quick. I want to show you something to make sure you right click your samples and go to cut itself. If you don't cut the samples by itself, the samples are going to overlap each other. And if you have a longer tail sample, it's going to sound sloppy and not computerized and glitched like we got it to sound. So let's go back to the piano roll overview. I'm going to hit Control Z to revert us back to this shape. And again, the last option, remember it went t-t-t-t-t-t, and then t-t-t-t-t-t. So now we're on the t-t-t-t-t, which are triplet notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So let's change our snap to grid to a 3rd beat. And now let's hit Control U, and it's going to create the 1, 2, 3 sound. And this is what you hear in a lot of Southern hip hop. They use this contrast between triplets and quarter notes to make, give it a different rhythm. It kind of gets your ear ready for a different rhythm, but then you get back into the regular rhythm, and it's a nice contrast. So let's say you wanted to make that go faster. You could click snap to grid, go to 1/6 beat, and then hit Control U. Now it's going to go t-t-t-t-t. Actually, I'm incorrect. So we're going to start the snare roll further back, or earlier, I should say. So let's drag this note out. Let's select it, go to snap to grid, 1/3 beat, hit Control U, and now it's going to auto chop. You can also manually slice if you want to, using the slice tool and slicing along the lines, the vertical lines that you see. Okay. Okay, so these are the options you can use to get those different timings. So hopefully you understand the different timings. So what I'm going to do here is add a snare roll unnecessarily right here, and I'm going to make it a quarter. I'm going to make it very small. So hit Control U. So you can have different snare rolls in different portions of the song. You could have it run all the way through, and you could even change different parts of the snare roll. So let's say you want the first portion, or let's say you want the end portion here to be faster. So let's drag this out. Just double click on it, make sure its duration is 4. Pull this back to 0. Boom. And then let's go to snap to grid. And let's say you want to make it a half step kind of slice. Hit Control, left click and highlight, hit Control U. So now you have two different timings, which are going to contrast each other. So you can be as creative as you like at this point. You can even make the end portion here go faster than the beginning portion. This is going to make it sound like it's speeding up. And I do this in some tracks. So I'll select the last 2 notes. I'll go to a quarter step and I'll hit Control U. Now keep in mind, when you slice smaller and smaller and smaller, and let's say I highlight this, which is a half step chop, and I want to do a triplet chop, it's not going to change the note lengths to fit the triplet chop. If I hit Control U, it's going to make these weird looking shapes, and it's going to sound weird. Okay, so you have to make sure you always revert back to a longer note length when you want to change the rhythm of a section, because once you slice it, it's going to slice that into thirds, not slice the whole area into thirds. It's going to slice the individual notes into thirds, and it's going to give you that sloppy sound. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that troubleshoot. So listen to how it sounds like it's going faster at the end. Kind of like we revved up, like we took off on a motorbike, kind of like zoom, you know, pulled on the throttle. So these are little techniques you can use to really create unique snare rolls. So let's get into the FL Studio functionality as far as the parameter screens. Now you can do the same thing using automation in your given DAW. What I'm going to do is just use some FL Studio navigation. But what we have here at the top right are different note properties. You can see we can go to the note panning, and this is going to change at the bottom, these values here. This is set to velocity. So all these vertical bars stand for the velocity of the snare. If I right click and drag some values, or you can left click and free drag. Okay, so that's the difference between right clicking. It's more linear, whereas free drag is the left click. I can make the volumes go up and down over time. Okay, and that volume sweep, when it goes up in volume and it goes up in speed, it kind of sounds like it's getting closer to you, like you're actually moving around. And this is what we call dynamic. And I'm trying to help you guys understand dynamic range and why it's so important in your songs, because we're, you know, the mass majority, the mass media, whatever you want to call it, is kind of forcing this loud, we call it the loud wars, which is lowering the dynamic range, which means we can't really feel our music like we used to. So let's go to, instead of velocity, let's say we want to modulate the filter cutoff frequency, which means built-in is a low-pass filter, and low-pass filters cut out high frequencies. So if I lower the cutoff frequency, it's going to lower the amount of high frequencies allowed. So as I lower this, it's going to make it sound more muffled of a sound. And you can start up and go down. Now notice I'm right clicking. And you can create some really cool sound effects doing this. Now, a really cool technique I like to use is actually, like right here, what I'll do is I'll hit Shift or just clone this, whatever you want to do, Control C, Control V, or Control B, whatever you like to use to copy and paste. Okay. What I like to do is pull this down an octave or to some lower value, so it has a really cool sound contrast. Now also what I want to do is change my snap to grid to a half step, drag this out. I'm going to give this section a different rhythm than the section up here. So this is chopped into half steps. Let's chop this into thirds. Let's actually chop it into 6 beats. So I'm going to hit Control U. Okay, so you get a really weird like combination, and I think this is going to expand your creativity a lot. Now also keep in mind, you can go to the note find pitch. So you can, if you have a snare roll, for example, well, this is a snare roll, isn't it? You can actually right click. And if you notice in the top left, it's going to give you a cent value. Cents are the way we measure semitones pretty much when it comes to pitch. It's how we measure pitch. So every 1200 cents is 1 octave. So if I right click here, starting at 0 cents, and I right click and drag this up to about 1200, that's 1 octave of pitch bend. And I can pitch bend my snares under the fine pitch parameter in FL Studio. And that's how we create those EDM rises over time. So what I'm going to do is open up the filter cutoff so it doesn't cut off any low frequency. And let's do that again. And also I'm going to regulate the volume so we can get a better feel. So you can be super creative when it comes to this type of stuff. Now in FL Studio, what you can also do is I can double click a note and I can create a slide note. So this is going to slide from C to A sharp, and I can create these, you know, I can duplicate what I have up here to make it slide to a lower note. So it kind of pitch bends down while pitch bending up. So let's hear what this sounds like. Let's slide that down, and I'm just going to duplicate this manually. You really can't tell because the sound is so short. Let me try and make it more dramatic. So it goes, and that's the pitch bend down, but also it's going up in pitch. So it's going, you know, it's relatively going down at a higher pitch. So let's try that. Let's see. I don't know if you could double click everything. No. So this would be a little more tedious, but you would have to manually add these in. But this is a, you know, just creative idea you could try out. What are these? I forget. Somebody help me. Scream in the mic. These are 6 beats, I think. Oh no, these are half. There we go. Let's see what this sounds like. I've never tried this before, but let's see. So I mean, you can get really creative. You know, what else can I show you here as far as, let's try resonance. So resonance is pretty much an EQ point at the filter cutoff. So let's see what so right here on this top section, I'm going to increase the resonance over time while the filter cutoff's going down. What you're going to hear is a frequency sweep from the frequencies because of the resonance going up. You heard it go, okay, that's the resonance. And I'm going to keep it at a steady volume. That's pretty cool. And this is just in the piano roll. We really didn't, you know, you can do a lot more, obviously. I'm going to kind of cut it short because I don't want to, you know, keep going over the same things. But this is how you really create those unique hi-hat rolls, those unique snare rolls. Let's do the same thing here with a hi-hat roll. I'm going to copy this, paste it just to hear what it sounds like. So you get cooler effects with the hi-hat because it has a very high-pitched sound. Let me see if I could turn the amplitude up. Well, let's send this to the mixer real quick just to turn it up. Really cool stuff once you get the hang of it. So try out those techniques, and I think you can really find and explore and discover some really cool techniques that will give you your sound, okay? Because there's infinite amount of ways you can create your own combination. So thanks for watching today. It's busyworksbeats.com. Be sure to leave a like on the video, share with your friends, and leave a comment telling us what you would like to see as far as rhythms and drum rhythms during this week for our YouTube videos. Thanks for watching today. It's busyworksbeats.com.